Hey, Neva. I guess that's your name. I'll show the PAL version real quick in a second, and I can kind of show you why it's not quite ready to ship. Why it's not simple. So there is a PAL version, like you can run the game in PAL. I don't have the audio streaming, but the music works fine. The issue comes with the timing critical code. So I'll show you an example. Like there's a super obvious example in the start or in the main gameplay. I mean, you can see at the bottom left here, there's all this glitching here. So that's because this screen split for the status bar is really timing critical, and the timing's different on PAL. So there's a lot of little issues like that that'll take time to kind of dig into and figure out solutions to. It's not super difficult. It's just takes time. And then maybe the bigger issue is the physics in the game. So it's hard to maybe tell if you're not looking at the game every day, but this is running slower than the NTSC version. So it's kind of like, I forget what the percentage is, but let's say 80% speed of the NTS version, which is maybe okay. But again, it's not great. And the issue there is to fix that is actually kind of challenging because a lot of the physics in the game are not like robust at all. So if I like change the jump speed, it's probably going to screw up a whole bunch of stuff. It's not going to be simple to change. It's not like time-based movement or anything. Everything is based on frame rate. And then potentially the bigger issue there, though, is that all those physics values are hard-coded. And that has a big performance win because when I say move right and I increment Sunny by 1 pixel, let's say every frame, that 1 is hard-coded. And if I make it variable to say, am I in PAL? Okay, make it 1.2. If I'm in NTSC, make it 1. The issue becomes that variable has a performance cost because I have to load that. I have to check the PAL setting. Basically a 0 cost call becomes like 3 or 4 calls. Maybe not quite that bad, but it'll add up. So I'm already struggling with performance in the game. That's one of the biggest issues I have to deal with. So the idea of adding additional performance overhead is a little scary at this point. So that's kind of why PAL isn't an obvious yes from me, because it is going to take a significant amount of work. As I mentioned in the chat, I think if I had to decide today, I would probably say the PAL version will likely be on the cart, but it'll be a bit of buyer beware, like with all these glitches and stuff. I don't know if there's any worse than that. One might be, I'm trying to think of what level that's on. This boss, I think. Oops. I use some screen split stuff on some of the boss fights. That might be an issue. Yeah, so this one uses screen splits pretty heavily. I wonder if this works okay. Okay, this actually looks fine. I was worried about this because basically there's screen splits happening here and here, and this is pretty timing critical code because this giant snake is obvious. Well, maybe not obvious, but it's not sprites. It's all in the background. So how I do this is I'm basically just I'm moving the camera. You'll see as he moves, this gray box moves. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But the main point is there's a lot of timing critical code here. So any timing changes on PAL really mess with that. So thankfully this works. I think just because I have enough of a gap, these black bars, although I'm surprised this bottom one doesn't have any glitches, but this does. But that's probably because this one, maybe the status bar is the biggest issue, because the status bar I also change palettes mid-screen, and that's actually more complicated, surprisingly, than changing the graphics or changing the camera mid-frame. So anyway, those are the biggest issues, but the physics is probably the one that would prevent it the most, is just going through the game and redoing all the physics to run at 50 frames a second instead of 60 frames a second. Let me just catch up on the chat real quick. Okay, yeah, Jordy's got the exact number there, 83%. Jordy, you mentioned everybody releases two separate ROMs. I could be wrong, but I don't actually think that's true. I think, well, maybe they do for ROMs, but most physical releases I've got, it's the same game on one cartridge. And by hitting reset 5 times or whatever it is, it switches to PAL timing or NTSC timing. And then I think the way most games work is the same as mine. We can detect what system you're on at runtime and we adjust things dynamically. But yeah, a separate ROM would be the way to avoid the performance issues. It might simplify the problem as well. Like I can basically just go through the game, change all the hard coded values until it feels right, and I don't have to kind of make the physics make sense in any way, if that makes sense. But I'm not sure. The long and short of it though is that's all effort. So to do that means it takes time, and I just don't know if I want to invest in that for the PAL release. Okay, that's interesting about that shooter. I'm not going to try and say the name. Estiku. I didn't realize that they have a custom bootloader. That's interesting. Oh, okay. Uh, oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, yeah, you're right. Sorry, the reset 5 times is for the CIC check, um, but that implies that both the game can handle both systems, and then in the code there's logic. Yeah, so like Witch and Whiz does that, and it runs on a PAL console, but none of the timing is changed. Only the music's fixed, which I think is what a lot of people do, because having slow music is quite noticeable. Um, so I detect that and change the timing for the music driver. And when I say I do it, that's built into the music driver I use. Um, but I don't do any, like in Witch and Whiz, I don't change any of the game code, the game logic. It just runs slightly slower. For Witch and Whiz, it doesn't really matter because it's basically a turn-based puzzle game. But for something like this, it'll be super noticeable. It feels really floaty, at least to me. It could be one of those things where if you don't play both side to side, you wouldn't even notice. But I don't know. Oh, that's cheap. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna get back to coding a bit. I'm gonna go off mic so I can listen to music. But if you got any questions, post them in the chat, and I'll catch up in a little bit. Actually, one more thing. While I'm off, while I got the mic set up, what I'm actually doing right now is I'm working on the quick save feature for the game, which I think I outlined here. So a bit of a eye chart here, maybe, but so basically, I've been trying to figure out how I want to handle saving in the game. I want the game to feel like a classic Super Mario Brothers 1 style game where you die and retry from the beginning over and over again, and that's part of the fun is discovering shortcuts, mastering the early levels of the game. But at the same time, I think the idea of having to leave your console on overnight or something like that because you want to like continue from where you are, like you haven't actually died, you're just need to take a break, is pretty annoying. And at a higher level, I really don't like the idea that people playing on emulators have a better experience than people on consoles. I can't simulate everything an emulator can do, but there's some quality of life stuff I can do, and one of those things is a quick save option. So it's challenging because I don't want it to become an exploit where right before you die, you quick save or you save, quit, and then reload, and you're back at the checkpoint without having lost your life. But at the same time, I don't want to make it so restrictive that it's basically useless. Like one of the ideas I thought of is you have to pay a life to save. I'm like, that's really annoying if you're on your last life and you have to basically end your game to save. So basically what I came up is this. So there's kind of 4 tenets of it. So there's no continue in the game. That's maybe somewhat controversial, but so not even Super Mario Brothers 1 style. You won't be able to continue from the current world. And the reason for that is essentially once you have that and you have saving, there's basically no end. There's no reason to ever go back to the beginning. You just sit on there. I mean, there are reasons. There should be motivations to do it, which I do have some, but in terms of kind of min-maxing the experience, really you should just sit on that highest level you've ever made to and keep continuing. Quick save when you don't need to play anymore, come back and just continue and slowly grind your way to the top. And that's not what I want. So there's no continue in the game. When you lose all your lives, it's back to the start. Second thing is that there's a quick save option in the pause menu, and this allows you to save and quit. So it saves your current level, your lives, your coins, stuff like that. And then point 3 is that when you load a quick save, it deletes it. So this is inspired by, I think, I'm trying to remember when I first saw this. I think it was the GBA, maybe the DS, but a lot of games introduced this idea of being able to just quick save, put the game away, come back later, but when you load the save, it deletes it. So it can't be used as kind of a checkpoint. You can't save, try something. If it fails, reload the save, because once you load the save, it's deleted. So you can only grab a snapshot at your current moment. And so that's how this is going to work. And to avoid it being like overly complex, it's going to only be available when you're near the start of a level or a checkpoint. So this avoids like quick saving right before you die or something like that, because I can't actually save the state of the world. I mean, maybe I could, but I don't want to put the effort in to do that. So essentially it's just going to save like which checkpoint you were last at, how many lives you had, things like that. And so that when you reload, you'll go back to the checkpoint. So I don't want people to be able to kind of rewind time or anything like that. So that's basically the goal of the feature. That's what I'm working on right now. So far I have it, let me show it real quick. I got some half-done code. Let me show. So here I'm on level 5.2, you can see in the bottom right, and I just hit this checkpoint. So if I go to the debug menu, oops, let's try that again. I go to the debug menu, I can do quick save. So that's saved, sent me back to the main menu, and now if I hit, I'll fully power off the game too, just to show that it's working. So if I go back to start game now, instead of going to 1.1, it should go to 5.2, and it should go to that specific checkpoint. Cool, which it did. So the basics are working. What's not working right now is coins, time, lives are not saving. So I need to do that, but that's relatively simple. The part I'm working on right now is that it doesn't delete the save when you join. So I just loaded it there. Now I reset the game, and essentially right now I can just keep doing it over and over again. So I could jump in here and go, oh, that was bad. So let me reset my console and then reload. I don't want that to be the optimal way to play the game. That's not fun to play, and yeah, it'll kind of ruin the game. So that's one part. The second part is maybe a little simpler, is that when I get to the main menu and detect that you have a quick save, I want to change this text to say resume game instead of start game. And then, yeah, delete after I do that. So that's what I'm working on right now. Okay, now I'm going to go off mic again. Hey, I've been struggling with this little issue for a bit, so I figured I'd come on camera and explain it a bit and try to make it a bit more interesting. But just give me a minute. I gotta get my headphones set up. All right, cool. So, yeah, the issue I'm dealing with is I'm trying to add this quick resume feature to the game. So when you are halfway through the game, you can quit at any time, do a quick save, and when you get back to this menu, you'll be able get back to the main menu. You'll be able to resume it. The trouble I'm running into, the first problem was I'm having trouble detecting when you actually have a save game, which seems simple, but the way I coded the rooms and IDs and stuff like that, there's a bunch of kind of scattered variables all over the place, and they kind of combine to make different scenarios, resuming a checkpoint, resuming or starting a new level, all that stuff. So it's kind of a little scatterbrained, and it's made it difficult to detect when there's actually a save game. So in this case, it says a resume game, but there is actually no game to resume. And so I made some changes to try and simplify that. But as a result, the game now crashes. Well, I've reverted those changes, but before the game was crashing. And I've been trying to figure out why that is. And I think I know now. I think I kind of have an idea what's going on there. Basically, let me jump back to the code. I had changed it briefly a minute ago to check if this room index is essentially uninitialized. And if it isn't, then I have a save game, which kind of worked. The issue, I believe, what was happening is that caused it to come in here and always set a checkpoint spawn index. So essentially, yeah, it would always try to find a checkpoint, but you haven't actually hit a checkpoint until partway through the level. So we go back here, like this is the start of the game. I haven't actually hit a checkpoint yet, but later on in the level, there's these little flowers that open up when you pass over them. So now I'm at a checkpoint. So I think if I had done the quick save from here, it would have been fine. But if I did it from this, because I actually have a valid checkpoint saved, but I think if I did it from the start of a level, it was crashing. Yeah, so I think that's what was going on. How to fix it? So I mean, it's basically fixed now. The problem is, how do I detect that I have a valid save? Because the problem is the default room in a save point is 0, which is a valid room. And technically you could do a quick save in the, rooms are basically levels. And technically you could save in the first level. Unlikely, but you could. And that needs to work. So the change I had tried to make before was changing the default values for the rooms to be an invalid number. So I think that still might be the way to go. I think the problem is, or the difference is, I should only be setting the checkpoint if that's valid. So let's, yeah, I think that's probably the solution. So I'll try that. Before I had put like basically all of this logic inside the check for a valid room, but it should be, do I have a valid room? If I do, kind of say that's the room we're loading into. Also, if I have a checkpoint, use that data rather than combining those into one thing. So let's, and then because now I have like an easy to, or like an invalid default for the room index when I'm actually deciding what text to put on the main menu. Should be somewhere here. I can actually check for that invalid value. Oops, sorry, I'm super zoomed in to try to make the stream a little bit more readable, but it's hard to fit a reasonable amount of code on screen. But anyway, yeah, so I can check that now. Okay, so I think I'm pretty confident this will work. Famous last words. Yeah, and if anybody has questions about the game or like NES development or anything like that, feel free to drop it in the chat. I'm happy to kind of shed some light on how this stuff works, or the game in general. I can hop around the game and show different features if you're curious, but if not, it's cool too. Let me know if the audio sounds okay and stuff. Tried to bump up the mic a little from yesterday. It still seems a little weak. Let me know if it sounds okay. All right, so let's test this out. We'll start with a fresh profile. So yeah, start a new game. We'll try the simplest case. So I come in here. Okay, that's definitely not right. I appear to be on level garbage -4. Okay, what happened there? So that was interesting. It didn't have the resume text, right? It did not. So is this going to give me the same thing? Okay, interesting. My very own minus world. Okay, so this is working, but then the actual loading, what did I do wrong here? Point room index is not equal to that. Yeah, this looks good. So if the current room, that's wrong. Is not equal to OX. That was basically just checking if it's not 0, which is the actual scenario I was trying to do. Although it's not 0. Yeah, anyway, let's just try it. Seems like maybe that actually should have worked still, but because I do set a default up here. But anyway, it's worth trying to fix. It's wrong either way. Maybe I should move the build over here so you can actually see why I'm just sitting here waiting. Or not. How do you drag something in here? Whatever. All right, so let's start with a fresh game again. Okay, so the default worked, and then let's do a quick save. So it's now got resume, which is correct. So this should take me back to the start of the game. Good. So now let's run ahead and find a checkpoint. All right, so this flower here is a checkpoint, so we'll hit that. Now if I do a quick save, it's still detecting it, great. So now it should resume to that checkpoint on the first level. Awesome, so it works. Okay, let's try something slightly more complicated, jump to a later level. 3, 4, I think has, yeah, a sub level. Which Makes it a little more complex. So we'll go in here, try this scenario first. So I'm in the second map of 3-4, but I haven't hit a checkpoint yet. So this should take me back to the start of 3-4 if I resume. Good. And then we'll try the checkpoint version. See if that works. Okay, awesome. Everything's working. Let's double check that that was a cold boot I just did, so actually turning the power off. So just making sure that that still works. Good. And then let's make sure that the other slots can have separate saves. So we'll put the third one on 1-3. And we'll put the second one on 1-2, just so it's easy to remember. And do a cold boot. All right, so this should load into 1-3. Awesome, yeah, you can see the world level at the bottom here. And then the middle one should load into 1-2. Good. Okay, everything's working. That's awesome. So the one thing that it's not doing right now that it should do is when you load a save, it's supposed to delete it. I mentioned this earlier in the stream, but basically the idea is that this is just a quick save. Basically, you can save, turn off the game, and come back later and get back to where you were, but it's not a checkpoint. You cannot load it over and over again. It's not a traditional save in that way. It's really just meant to be a way to stop, put the game down, and come back later. So you can't save, make a mistake, and go back and do it over again. It's not meant to be that kind of thing. So to facilitate that, when you load a save, it should delete itself on the way out. So I need to implement that now. Which should be fairly simple, except for maybe the timing of it, because basically I have to clear the save after all the data is loaded, but after all the data is used in the save, so everything's set up to go into level, but right after that. But actually, as I'm saying that, I'm pretty sure it's right in the code where it just was. Yeah, so in that same spot we do all this. I think essentially you should always clear the save. Yeah, we can just always clear the save, because this is essentially this function, reset game state. This is called on your way into a fresh boot. So it does a whole bunch of things to kind of reset the game state, and as well as load that save profile data for the quick save. And then there's no harm in clearing it, even if it doesn't exist. It'll just reset it to default values. If it does exist, it'll essentially clear it. So let's try that. Does beg the question though, should I allow the player to clear the quick save data? Is it annoying if you've got quick save and the only way to get rid of it is to resume and then die a bunch? I don't know. I might add like I still have to do the actual like menu for this system. So I may make it so that the pause menu has a save and quit and a save without quitting. And I guess that would be a way to clear out your quick save. So anyway, we still have the quick save data from before. So this one, I believe, went to 1-2. But now when I go to 1-2 and then quit back to the main menu, I should no longer have a resume option. So resume the game. That should have just cleared the save data. I'm on 1-2. And then let's just do a natural death here. Shouldn't really matter, but just to test it at least once. I'm just using my debug menu here to force myself to die. Okay, so it should go to game over and resume still there. Okay, so that's not good. Let's just double check. Yeah, so that didn't actually clear the save data. Oh. No, that's weird. Did that build? Oh, I don't think it finished building. Oops. Sometimes my build script gets stuck. Hopefully that's all it was. It seems weird that that wouldn't have worked. All right, that's done now. Let's try that again. So again, we should have a resume here for 1, 2. Go in here. Okay, now that should have deleted it. And if I reset the game, come back in. Ah, it's still there. What is going on? Am I deleting the, oh, I know why. I forgot to set the profile slot. So one of the kind of weird and wonderful parts of doing C on the NES is, at least with CC65, the compiler I use. Actually, this isn't even related to the compiler, but this function is called from multiple banks, and the function I have set up for calling into banks uses this kind of wrapper function where you pass it the bank number and the function to call. But one of the downsides is I can't pass parameters to these functions. And what I was going to say before is passing parameters to functions in CC65 is super slow. But that's actually not why there's an issue here. So anyway, what you end up doing sometimes is creating these temporary variables, these globals, and you essentially use those as inputs to the function. So it's kind of weird here because I'm calling it from the same bank, so I could pass it a parameter, but I still have to use the same API. So I forgot to do that here, which is why this kind of coding is really bad. It's easy to make mistakes and you don't get any compiler hints. Yeah, so I just pass it the current save profile and that should do it. So what was probably happening is this was defaulting to 0. And because I was selecting the middle, the second profile, it was clearing the first, not the second. So if I happened to have picked the first profile, I wouldn't have even noticed that bug. And probably once this gets fixed, I'll call it a day and go grab some lunch. All right, so this should, again, go to 1, 2. But that should now have deleted the correct save. And then, sorry, I didn't do anything there. I just opened that and closed it. So now I'll reset the game, go back into the second save. So now it should say start game. Yes. Okay, good. So the save got deleted. This should go to 1, 1, the bottom right there. Perfect. And then if I remember correctly, the first slot was like 3, 4. Oh, it's been deleted. Okay. Oh, from that bug before where it was passing in the wrong slot. So it deleted. But this one should go to 1, 3. Good. And then if I reset the game, this should now go to the start game. Perfect. Okay, everything's working. So yeah, what I have left to do for this quick save system is I need to actually save your coins, your flowers, the current time when you saved, so that it can't be used as an exploit to kind of reset your timer, your current lives, and then I also need to put it into an actual pause menu, which I don't even have yet. So that's actually going to be a pretty big task, because right now when you pause, it just freezes the game, hides the sprites. But I'm going to need to build some sort of pause menu, which is Yeah, going to be fairly complex to make it look good. I think what I was thinking of, I started sketching some stuff up here. One of the simpler ways to do it will be to put it in the status bar at the bottom, because I already have it switching to a fixed palette. So the trouble is, like, each level is different palettes. So like here, if I put the pause menu in the center of the screen, it'll be like blue and green and teal and stuff like that. But if I go to like second level, underground, and I pause, at this point the palettes are all dark, so it'll be black and blue, and maybe okay for the most part. I don't mind it being like kind of themed to the level, but the trouble is some of the palettes are quite different, so the order of the colors matters. You can see on the left here, like one might go like medium, light, dark, and another level might have a palette that goes dark, light, medium, and then the pause menu would look all messed up. So anyway, long way of saying, the simplest approach is probably to put the pause menu in the status bar at the bottom of the screen, because I already do a bunch of work there to swap the graphics and to get a consistent palette across all levels, which is more complex than it sounds. So if I can fit all the options in here, I think that's what I'll do. Originally, when I started sketching this out, I was going to try and squeeze it into the this box here itself, but I think it might be better just to ditch the box and just kind of like have floating text essentially, and just can't remember what the offset I need here is, but anyway, just have floating text on the blue background might be a better approach. It won't look as nice, but it'll be much easier to squeeze in a bunch of options, because I need resume, save and quit, quit without saving. I'd love to have the ability to turn music on and off, sound effects on and off. I don't know if I'll be able to fit that in. And I kind of want to make sure I have a couple slots left in case something comes up last minute that I need to squeeze in there. Yeah, anyway, rambling a little bit there, but thanks to everybody who joined on the stream today. It was awesome talking to you guys, and we will end it there. Have a good one.